Welcome back to another episode of the Mainly Hoops podcast. We're back with another game preview. This one, Tennessee and Illinois. This game in Nashville. So a semi-home game here for Tennessee. This one's Saturday night at 8 p.m. Of course, both teams are reeling a little bit. UConn took down Illinois last weekend. Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. Illinois hasn't played since, so they'll be over a week off since their last game. They really struggled in that game, and I watched pretty much that entire game, and like Stojakovic was a non-factor in that one. Tomislav Ivisic was fine, but he just hasn't looked right up to this point. Mirkovic was okay. Really, the only bright spot was Boswell in that game. He was phenomenal, and he really has been all season long. He's been the one steady guy night in and night out that Illinois has been able to rely on. And then on the other end, Tennessee, coming off 2 consecutive losses to a shorthanded Kansas team to close out their 3-game trip out in Vegas, where they really sputtered in the second half. They were up 7 at half, lost by 5, and then lost at Syracuse in a Syracuse team that had been really struggling. Went 0-3 out in Vegas and got demolished by Iowa State in the second half in their final game out there. Then respond with a home win against Tennessee and really locked them down. It was a grinder game, 62-60. Tennessee really struggled efficiency-wise. Nate Ament was 2 for 11. Gillespie struggled. Nate Ament hasn't shot it well really at all season. He's under 40% from the field. He's thrown up Wade Taylor numbers up to this point, but had to give him a shout at some point. But anyway, this game figures to be really important for both teams, a chance to pick up a real quality win against, a tournament level team, and they're going to be hungry, I would expect. But Cody, what do you see here?
Yeah, just to the Ament point, he's been really good against inferior competition, and he's had 3 games against, what you would consider top 50 competition. I'll throw Syracuse in that bucket, but I mean, if you look at Ken Palm and filter it for tier A competition, Syracuse would qualify there. He's shooting 5 for 21 from 2 in these 3 games, and he's 3 for 12 from 3. So I don't even know what that adds up to. I believe it's obviously somewhere in the 20s percentage wise, low 20s. Like, it's pretty rough overall. He hasn't had really a good game he had 20 points against Kansas. A lot of it came from the free throw line. Went 2 for 5 from 3, but that was probably the best he looked. And I wouldn't even say he looked like phenomenal against Kansas. Like, that's a good defense, and to score 20 is impressive, but he has really struggled against high level competition. And that was kind of the issue coming into it, just because, he's kind of living off of his tough shot making, because if the catch and shoot game wasn't elite and he can't get to the rim at a high level really off the bounce, like the explosion off the bounce isn't phenomenal by any means. And he's a little bit thinner framed and a weaker finisher. So it has been a little bit rough for him against solid competition so far. And they really need him, because, outside of him and Gillespie, like, where is the offense coming from a consistent standpoint? I mean, I do think a lot of it is going through the front court and their ability to get on the glass and work through the post-up game. There have been bright spots, particularly Jalen Carey, who's been very good all over the glass. He's been really good in post-up situations. He's been able to play a lot of bully ball. I mean, he's 19.1% on the offensive glass, and our guy JP Estrella, fellow Mainer, he's been honestly very good so far in games where he's been healthy. He's kind of dealt with some injuries, but he's kind of been a menace on the glass, and he's more of a offensive minded big overall. So those 2 guys have been a nice change of pace for this front court that I kind of had issues about going into the season when it came to, like, I kind of thought Okpara and Cade Phillips were going to take up like most of the front court minutes, and they've taken up like a bulk of them. But those 2 guys coming in and providing some offensive punch has been really big. But overall, it still is kind of an issue with, like, who's making shots consistently. If it's not going to be Ament, and Gillespie's been he's been good. I don't think he's been like to my expectations. Like I thought he was going to be one of the best guards in the country, and it hasn't been like absolutely phenomenal. Although he's been fine, but and they also haven't defended at like a Brick Barnes like level, at least over like the last like 3 or 4 years. And I think part of that is playing like the more offensive minded bigs. You know, they don't have like really as much rim protection up front, and they're a little bit more exposable in some mismatches when you space them out. So the Tennessee definitely has their issues. Illinois also has their issues, and I think it's mostly just from like lineup optimization, and like there's a lot of moving parts within their lineup right now. They've dealt with some injuries, and I think for Underwood, it's just kind of finding that ideal lineup that he can go to, and when he tightens up his rotation, like which group of 5 guys is going to be, you know, the most efficient on both ends of the floor. I really think they're struggling with role allocation at this point in time. Like you mentioned, Boswell's been great. Stojakovic has been good for the most part. He's kind of hit or miss. He's struggled against UConn, and you know, Ivisic or Tomislav Ivisic coming back into the mix. Like Big Z's role is a little bit unclear. He's been rough the last couple games. Mirkovic is good, but you can kind of exploit him defensively, which UConn kind of did, like ran him off some screens and kind of played him off the floor for in the, I forget which half he didn't play all that much, but he didn't get like a ton of run in that game. He kind of got exposed. So they're just trying to figure out some things lineup wise, but I think the fact that they're fully healthy is something I think they're going to be able to figure out at some point. But regardless, it's going to be a fun game because last year's rendition of this game, which was at Illinois, was an awesome game that ended with a Jordan Gainey buzzer beater going all the way down the floor, and I believe there were 4 seconds on the clock and won it at the buzzer. It was an awesome game.
Yeah, no, it should be a fun game. And, you know, I think both teams, like you said, have a lot to figure out. And, you know, Illinois, I think, is finally like fully healthy. They've had over a week off. I would expect that they're at full strength here in this one. You know, if they're going to come out with a win here, and I'm going to consider this for whatever it's worth. You know, this is a home game for Tennessee, really. I mean, they're going to have the bigger crowd. It's going to sound like a Tennessee home game, but you know, if Illinois is going to come out of here with a win, you know, I think the biggest thing is controlling the glass, you know, like limiting the second chance opportunities of Tennessee, which, you know, up to this point, Illinois has done a great job on the defensive glass, and then, you know, winning the offensive glass, winning the shot volume battle, which, like, up to this point, again, like Illinois has done a great job with that. They're 14th in the country in offensive rebound rate, and they're playing a Tennessee team. For as good as they are on the offensive glass, they're not that great. You know, they're at the back end of the, or they're in the beginning of the middle third of the league or of the country in defensive rebound rate, 132nd. You know, so I think Illinois can exploit them there, and if they can, I think it sets them up fairly well because, you know, like this Illinois team, like we talked about sort of in the team preview, it's like the bigs that really space the floor out. You know, so it's not like they have a bunch of guards that are going to light it up from 3. So I think they're going to need to win the shot volume battle in this game. You know, I think they might be a little bit better than what they've shot at thus far, you know, the 32.5%. You know, they're still letting them fly. You know, they're still top 100 in the country in 3-point rate. You know, like we talked about last year, they had a lot more success when they started just attacking the rim, but they're still like wanting to shoot the 3. So I think another key here in this game and is putting some more pressure on the rim. Obviously, like Tennessee has a great 2-point defense. They always do. But I think that there are ways to generate shots at the rim. You know, trying to, I think the way they can do that is with the types of bigs that they have, right? They have bigs that can stretch defenses out, right? Tomislav, obviously Big Z has been sort of a train wreck the last couple of games, like you alluded to. I mean, I just chuckled that game against UConn because he just catching fire. He just catching fire and like zero conscience at all. You know, not understanding like time and score and situation. He just lets it fly. And like my one complaint actually with that, I'll give him some credit. Like they're playing on an NBA court in that game because the Knicks were hosting an NBA Cup game that night. And what I've noticed in some of these games on NBA floors is they're these guys are shooting threes from like the parking lot. So like Big Z was stepping out, like he's taking like 32 footers. So I would expect him, like he's going to be better than that, obviously. But, I think they can put pressure on the rim in this game with the types of bigs that they have. Like I said, those two, like Hummerkaus at the 4, he can stretch the floor and knock down shots. He's shooting it at 35% thus far this season. So I think, putting some pressure on the rim, taking the right threes, not falling in love with it, and then controlling the glass, I think are going to be really important to this game. And then like continuing to take care of the basketball like they've done all year. This Tennessee defense isn't quite what it's been maybe in years past in terms of like turning you over, at the guard spot. But, they're still obviously a really good defense. So, Illinois with guards like Boswell, the experience of him, can he, continue to take care of the basketball? I think that's going to be key in this game in what figures to be more of a road game. But on the flip side, Cody, Tennessee, what do they have to do here?
Yeah, and first, just to your point about playing on NBA courts, like I don't think I've seen a team shoot it well on an NBA floor. I mean, they all think they have to shoot NBA threes. It's like, I mean, I understand that it's like a little bit tricky, but you'd think that would be like an emphasis going into the game. It's like this isn't the 3-point line. Like you can go in between the lines and shoot it from the actual college 3-point line. I would be very curious to see what the percentage is across the country when teams play on an NBA floor with the NBA line out there. Somebody has to have run the numbers on that. I'd be very curious to see it. I might have to do it myself, honestly, at some point. But for Tennessee to win this game, I think I'll start on the offensive end. Like I don't think this is the worst matchup for them overall. It's an offense that on the perimeter is run through two guys. It's run through Jacoby Gillespie and Nate Ament through. I mean, it is a lot of off-ball actions that Rick Barnes likes to run, but it's been, I think, a little bit more played in primary action lately, and Illinois will allow that. Illinois tries to take away spot up situations, which Tennessee is in the 0th percentile in spot up frequency on the offensive end. So that's really not something that they're seeking out. Honestly, they're not looking to drive and kick at a super high level. They're looking for like I said, more off screens. But when they get into pick and roll handoff situations, like Illinois is going to be more passive. They're going to be more in drop coverage. So a guy like Gillespie coming off of those handoffs, he's going to have to look to score, and he's going to have to be really good in this game. And I do think he's in an advantageous situation to get some clean looks off the bounce. I know he's going to have Kylan Boswell chasing him around. He's one of the best perimeter defenders in the country, but I think a defense that is more aggressive and tries to take the ball out of Gillespie's hands is better suited to have a chance. Or, I mean, you're going to have a chance against this Tennessee offense that I have some concerns about, but forcing the ball out of Gillespie and Ament's hands is the more ideal play, I think. And this is an Illinois defense that's going to do so. And, for Nate Ament, I don't think he's in like the worst spot. I don't think Illinois has like a fantastic defender to throw at him. I mean, it might be Stojakovic. It might be Hummerkaus. They do have some size at least, but I wouldn't like classify any of these guys as like, demons on the defensive end. I think Ament can get to his spots and make shots. He's a tough contested shot maker, and I think he's going to have an avenue to do that in this game. And I think Tennessee can also get on the offensive glass. I know Illinois is 9th in the country in defensive rebound rate, but I do think that number is a bit like watered down because of the competition that they've played. And they're just so much bigger than the mid-major teams that they play over the course of the season. Like they kind of just dominate inferior competition with their positional size. So, and I think Tennessee, like for my money, is the best offensive rebounding team in the country. They have just a fortress of bigs that can get all over the glass. So I think no matter what you do, Tennessee is going to get their second chances. So I think that's an avenue for them. And defensively, I actually think it's going to be a little bit tougher, for Tennessee's bigs to guard Illinois' bigs in space, like you mentioned, like Tomislav and Mirkovic, when they're able to space out Okpara and Phillips, and when they put Carey and Estrella in, put that rotation into the game, they're a little bit exploitable there. But so they're going to have to hold their own there at least, and be a little bit mismatch proof as well, which I think they are, because Illinois has been mismatch hunting like a lot this season, particularly with Stojakovic. But I do think Tennessee has enough wings and enough guys that they can throw at him to at least slow him down. And they also need to keep Illinois off of the offensive glass, like you mentioned, and that's going to be a little bit of a shaky area. But again, I think Illinois' numbers are like a fraction watered down because of the competition that they've played so far. So I think Tennessee is in like a decent spot, especially in a home environment or a home-like environment, to potentially come out with the win here. It's going to be tough. And, I'm pretty much 50-50 on this game overall, but I don't think it's a terrible spot for Tennessee.
Yeah, I'd say I'm 50-50 here as well. It is kind of a tough one because I think both teams have clear avenues to win, but it's difficult to kind of say which one's going to win out. I'm going to side with I think I'm going to side with Illinois to win a close one. I guess believe in the depth of talent that they have a little bit more. I believe in their ability to really space out the interior defenders of Tennessee. And I think on the defensive end, I think they can do enough to limit the second chance opportunities of Tennessee. I think they're going to be able to generate enough second chance opportunities themselves. So ultimately, I'm going to take, this veteran group, or the veteran guard and Kylan Boswell that's been so great. And then, some of these others that have really chipped in alongside him and all that talent. I expect Stojakovic to really bounce back. So I'm going to take Illinois here. I'll say a close one. I think it could be a little bit more of a grinder game than maybe people would expect. I'll say kind of like a low 70s game, like 72 to 69. Illinois wins.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so split on this game. I think Tennessee has advantages, but I'm also just like a little bit down on their offense in general. And like as much as they can get on the offensive glass, like can they really grab 44% of their misses against an Illinois team that has like a ton of positional size and depth at the big man position. So I think I'm going to side with you and take Illinois, even though it's a semi-road game. I think, yeah, it's mostly just because I'm pretty much down on this, what this Tennessee offense can do. I'm a little bit concerned with Nate Ament against high level competition, even though I think this is like a decent matchup for him, probably the best matchup he's had against high caliber competition. But the numbers are pretty stark for him when he's playing top 50 comp. So I'm going to side with Illinois. I think it's taken them a little while to figure it out with the depth that they have at every position, but I think they've had some time to kind of figure it out. They've had over a week to kind of prepare for this game. So I'm going to side with Illinois in a super, super tight game here. I'll say they win it 75-74.
Yeah. Like you said, it's really, I think it's a game that could go either way. I think both teams could easily find a way to win this game. So we'll see what happens Saturday night, but that wraps things up for the Tennessee-Illinois preview. Thank you for listening to the Mainly Hoops podcast.